But when it came to teaching, a lot of people, 3 out of 4 people we talked to in the street was atheist, which was, they weren't actively believing, they didn't know, which was just, it was very difficult because they were already just very skeptical about it. They didn't believe in it. They were almost set. And we saw people change, but it was definitely, it's hard to explain to somebody God who is either angry at them or has been taught not to believe in. Kids in East Germany during communist time had to stand in front of their teachers and say, there is no God. How do you overcome that? It's a hard question, and it was very hard to do, but it's not impossible. It just takes some time. I think a lot of it, you can understand a lot more of it when it comes to, you look at Germany's history. The people that I taught, the people that you talked to, lived through World War II. The country was destroyed. Cities were flattened. People were killed. And then right after that, they went through communism. Where they were told that there was no God. So between seeing the suffrage, I think, of their friends and families, and then saying that, and then hearing the answer, God is the problem. God is the reason this has all happened. I think naturally, without having any influence of the gospel, and in the circumstances, they were naturally, they'd be angry at God. Naturally, they would be upset. Naturally, they would choose, no, he doesn't exist, because if he did, he would love us. We know that's not true necessarily, but that's where that comes from. They've suffered, I think, a lot in a lot of ways, and then that establishment of belief is just carried on, into younger generations. That's not always true. There are some very, very believing folks out there that are very strong, that have lived through that and have come to an understanding of that. But I would say a lot of the atheist problems have just come from the history, from the experiences that they've shared. And some things that I would touch on is I kind of relate God as a father, that because he is, that's what he is, and everybody has a father. And so when it came to teaching an atheist, and they say, oh, this happened, God let this happen, he's the reason for my problem. Well, I kind of, sometimes I say, well, yes, but God will tell us not to put our hand on the stove when it's hot, but we have our choice and we can still do it. He lets things happen to us because that's the way we learn. He can't, just always throw everything at us. I saw a lot of people come to an understanding of more of his character. For example, I remember saying to a lady once, after bearing testimony, sharing scriptures with her, just saying, if a child doesn't want to learn anything and you send him to school, is he going to learn anything? No, he's not, because that's just the mentality that he has. But if a child wants to go and wants to learn and is open to it, that's when a teacher can make an influence. And I remember seeing her eyes light up and saying, oh, yeah, that makes sense. And, and then you can see that click. So I guess when it comes to approaching atheists and approaching those that don't believe, you have to be understanding. You have to empathize with them. But when it comes down to just speaking with them, is just going by the Spirit, bearing testimony of the love of God, because he does love them, and he is there, and he is invested in their lives, and he does believe in them. And everybody's different. Everybody's got to come slowly to that. And if you're teaching by the Spirit, and if you're using the Scriptures, eventually they'll come to that. Once again, they choose whether or not they accept it or not. But if you're following the Spirit and you're bearing sincere testimony and you love them, then yeah, they'll come eventually. And I saw that happen. I saw it click. I saw people feel of God's love. Naturally, I have questions too. Naturally, I have, I have those questions. Is God really there? I don't know. Is he there? Everybody has those questions, but I think it comes down to going to the source. If we want to really know if God is there, why not ask him yourself? Why not ask directly him? And so I would tell people that a lot too. You don't have to go off the wisdom of, what somebody else has told you or whatever, but ask God for yourself. Are you there? And talk to him. That may sound weird, for somebody that doesn't believe, but ask him if he's there. Pray to him. Search him out. Try to understand it rather than having a closed book. I know that God exists, and I know that he loves me and that he's invested in me because I've spoken to him. I've talked with him. I have felt of his presence and of his love. Was it immediate? No. It took time. It always does. but he is there, and as you show that, he's able to manifest himself. So no, it's not going to happen in a minute like you want it to. It's not going to happen that way. But I promise, as you seek him out, you'll find out relatively quickly whether or not he's there.